Yesterday, we talked about the controversy going on in the county executive race and that county executive meeting. We have obtained a new commercial that is going to start airing on television. That is, it's a Steve Stenger spot that hits Charlie Dooley right between the eyes. Here is that spot.
My name is Susie Barreca, and I worked with victims of domestic abuse in the county prosecutor's office. When women arrive at a county shelter, it's because they have nowhere else to go. Buzz Westfall was taking everybody, but Charlie Dooley started turning away families, sending them back into harm's way. Steve Stenger passed an ordinance requiring the county to accept every abused woman and her children. I can't thank Steve Stenger enough. What he did is a lifesaver.
That is a new commercial that's going to start airing here shortly. Steve Stenger, County Council member, good morning and welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Thanks for having me on.
Explain this ad. What does that mean, Charlie Dooley turned away women who are in need?
Well, back in 2011, advocates for victims of domestic violence were coming into the council and giving testimony that the county executive was quite literally turning women away based on their residency from domestic violence shelters in the county.
You mean
the Wideman shelter?
They weren't county residents. They were from Southern Illinois. They were from St. Charles. What does that mean?
Well, we have reciprocity agreements, and the purpose of the shelter is to be open to provide shelter for anyone, for any woman, for anyone who's a victim of domestic violence. And the St. Louis County executive was acting completely contrary to the mission and the purpose of the county shelter and actually turning women away, women and children.
So he told people who were at the front desk, please turn them away?
Apparently, yes. And we have signed affidavits from women who were turned away, and we had a number of victims advocates come and give testimony that this is what was happening. And,
right.
I mean, we lived it. We saw it for approximately about 6 weeks. They were coming to the council, and ultimately what we did on the council was I actually drafted the law. And we passed a law that said that the county executive could not discriminate against women based on their residency for access to the shelter.
Right. So he was claiming that they weren't a St. Louis County resident.
Basically, yes.
Right.
He was saying that because you weren't from St. Louis County, you cannot have shelter.
Right.
And that's completely contrary to the mission and the purpose and the charter of the shelter.
And if you're in St. Charles or you're in St. Louis City and you're a St. Charles County resident, as you say, there's a reciprocity. They don't ask you for a residency rule. They just accept you and bring you in.
No, and as a matter of morality, how do you turn away someone who's been the victim, or the recent victim of domestic violence? It's terrible.
Right.
It's unconscionable.
All right, let's talk about what happened the other night at the county council meeting. First of all, can you sit somewhere else further away from me? I don't want to sit so close to you, just in case something happens to you. What happened the other night? What happened? Tell us from the beginning.
One of the first speakers was Mike Jones, and Mike Jones is one of Charlie Dooley's, who's the county executive, of course, one of his top guys. And he came into the council, without any warning, really, and spoke. Of course, it's anyone's prerogative to speak at a council meeting. We have a public forum where anyone's welcome to speak. He took the microphone and basically, you played yesterday what he did, which was just basically a string of insults to me. And
now back up a second, because we played the audio. We're going to get the audio to play again here for a second. But he started acknowledging you, and you said, "Excuse me, you're supposed to acknowledge the chair."
No, Mike O'Mara, who was sitting next to me, asked him to acknowledge the chair because it is true. It's part of what I guess the protocol at the council is the speaker addresses the chair. So Mike O'Mara said, sir, you need to address the chair.
Oh,
and he said, and that's when Mike Jones, and I'm summarizing.
Oh, sure.
But Mike Jones basically said, I'm
going to get you next.
I'm going to speak to who I want to speak to, and you can take a number, and I'll get you next.
Right. Okay, first things first. He said that you, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you have never done anything to help black children. Is that a racial slur, and did he call you out as being somewhat racial or racist?
I'll say his comments speak for themselves, and I'll say that, it's completely false. I mean, that's just, it's ludicrous. That's a completely false statement. I would respectfully disagree with that.
He also said, and please explain this, at the end of his comments, he said, and again, I'm paraphrasing, you'll get your meeting, I'll get my meeting, and I'll kill a hyena. Is that a direct threat to you?
I'm going to let the comment stand on its own. I can't really care. I don't know what was going on in his mind, with what he said. He seemed very angry. And, I think you understand what he was angry over. And it was, I criticized the policy.
Right.
I certainly never had anything to say about him personally, nor would I. I don't think that's appropriate. I criticized a particular policy, and I made a suggestion. And the suggestion was that we would utilize Children's Services funds that are available, very much available, to the tune of about $80 million, and they're supposed to be spent on services for children. And I had, the audacity to suggest that we would spend that money appropriately on counseling services for children who had just recently been whipsawed by a decision of the State Board of Education.
Did you talk to Mike Jones after the meeting?
I did not. No, not after the kill the hyena.
Did you talk to County Executive Charlie Dooley after the meeting?
I did not. Not after that comment, because I took the comment as really. I believe that Mike Jones was there to speak and say things that Charlie believed he couldn't say. Perhaps politically. I think he was there essentially speaking for Charlie. That's how I took it. So right. I don't think that it was appropriate for me to approach the county executive, because as he left the dais that evening, he was, I think Channel 2 had covered that he was poking into the chest of, it's on video.
Right.
He was right in the space and poking into the chest and waving papers in the face of Greg Quinn, who was another council person.
Charlie Dooley was.
There
is video of him either bumping a chest or getting in the face of, or some type of physical touching.
Yeah, and I was near that situation, and I stepped back. Because it happened right in front of me. So I stepped back and avoided that situation. So it would have been impossible for me to talk to him.
Yeah. I know you said you're going to let his comments stand on their own. Did you feel threatened when he said that?
Well, I'll say it this way. When you're in a public setting and you talk about killing and you're pointing at me and you're talking about, and you refer to me as an animal, it doesn't make you feel comfortable. I'll say that. Whether I took it as a physical threat, and I didn't feel physically threatened sitting there in the council. It was just, I would have rather it not happen.
Right.
And it was uncomfortable. You don't want to be called an animal, and you don't want to be, I think that, I'm involved in public service because I want to help people, and I wanted to help children, and that was what my comments were directed to.
Right.
And it wasn't about an election. It was about, truly, we have an $80 million fund sitting there. I made a suggestion, and it was just to have a hearing and let's talk about the issue. Let's make a determination. It wasn't to criticize the Children's Services Fund for having that $80 million balance, which I think we need to spend that balance down, because that's what it's there for. And this was the perfect opportunity to have a hearing and talk about how that money could be properly allocated to help the children of Normandy. That's all I wanted to do.
The whole thing is unbecoming of politicians, I think.
Well, yeah,
and where do you go from here?
That's the problem, and that's why, there's a certain civility that you have when you deal with one another. And you have that civility because you know that although you may disagree on this issue, there are going to be other issues that you're probably not going to disagree on, and that you're in fact going to want to speak with that other person again. So you try not to burn bridges, and you try not to close doors. And when you talk about killing and referencing someone as a hyena, those things, don't sit well with people. I don't think that anyone would be comfortable with that.
You've been in the studio numerous times. You come in here without security. Are you planning on hiring security anytime soon?
No, but I did tell my wife about it when I got home.
Okay, and my next question was, what about your family?
Well, no, not at all. But I told my wife about it when I got home. I said, I think, Mike Jones this evening said he was going to come to the next council meeting and he was going to kill a hyena.
Hi,
and my
I'm
wife
Amy
wasn't so
Bergman.
much concerned about the killing. She was more concerned about why he called me a hyena. And then we got into a discussion of whether I actually
I have
look
to say
like
my favorite
Well,
moment
that's-
earlier this year.
Well,
when I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I look a little
That's
like
the
a
way to
hyena.
travel
She
with
said
me.
my nose is sort of pointed like a hyena.
Okay.
You can catch my blog at
What has your relationship been like with
SWA.com/travels
Mike Jones
with Amy.
before this?
You know, it's always been cordial. We say hello in
Read
the
it every
hallways.
day in
You
the
know, we've had
Post-Dispatch
occasion
or
to,
online
work
at
on a few things, not
stltoday.com.
together, but he was. And then we got into a discussion of whether I actually
I have
look
to say my
like
favorite
Right. Well, that's-
moment earlier this year.
Well,
when I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I look a
They
little
said
like
the
a
council
hyena.
was
She
an
said my nose is sort of pointed like a hyena.
Okay.
You can catch my blog at
What has your relationship been like with
certainly
Mike
been before the
Jones
council,
before this?
seeking things. You know, it's always been cordial.
And that's
We
one
say
of the
hello in
reasons
the
read it every
hallways.
day in the
You know, we've had
Post-Dispatch
occasion
or
together to
online
work
at
on, you know,
STL
having,
Today.
this type of an interaction isn't something that really is positive.
What's your relationship with Charlie Dooley right now?
That's a cold one right now. It's been pretty cold.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly he was. And then we got into a discussion of whether I
I
actually
have
look
to say my
like
favorite
Right. Well, that's-
moment earlier this year.
Well,
when I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I look a little
the
like a
council
hyena.
is
She
an
said my
oversight.
nose is August 5th is the primary.
Okay. Is this
Catch
going to
my
get?
blog.
What has your
Just
relationship been like with more heated and more contentious and more volatile?
You know, it's always been cordial.
And that's
We say
one of the
hello
reasons
in
read
the
it every
hallways.
day in the
You know, we've had
Post-Dispatch
occasion
or online at STL Today.
Not this type of an interaction is the aggressor in these situations. In any
What's your
way, shape, or
relationship with
form. I
Charlie
don't
Dooley
believe
right
in
now?
that. That's
a
not my
cold
style.
one right now.
I believe in.
Yeah.
I certainly. And then we got into a discussion of whether I
I have to say my favorite
Well, that's-
I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I
Did
look a
he
little
bring
like a
race
hyena.
into
She said my
this?
nose is
Did
August
Mike
5th is the
bring
primary.
race the fact that- Okay. Is this going to get? What has your relationship been like with more heated and more contentious? Was this a
You know, it's always been cordial. We say hello in the
Read it every
hallways.
day in the
You know,
Post-Dispatch
occasion
or
to
online at STL
I
Today.
have to let his type of
speaking
speaking
for
for himself. I don't want situations.
What's your relationship with Charlie Dooley right now?
That's a cold one right now. His comments were his comments. I certainly. And then we got into a discussion of whether I
I have to say my favorite
Well, that's-
I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I
Did
look a
he
little
bring
like a
race
hyena.
into
She said my
this?
nose is
Did
August
Mike
5th is the
bring
primary.
race? Okay. Is this going to get? What has your relationship been like with more heated and more contentious? Was this a
You know, it's always been cordial. We say hello in the
Read it every
hallways.
day in the
You know,
Post-Dispatch or online at STL Today.
Is it because I look like a hyena, or is it because are you afraid I might bite you?
No,
That's
I'm
a
afraid
cold
somebody
one.
might come after
I
you.
will not bite you. I promise I will not. I certainly.
County
And then we got into a
executive,
discussion of
county
whether
members.
I have to say my favorite
Well, that's.
I gave away
sounds like a
She actually said I look.
married couple.
She said I look a little like a hyena. She said my nose is August 5th is the primary.
Okay. Is this going to get? What is your